The UFC has announced some massive matchups for fight night cards over the next 2 months, and in this video, we will be going over some of these bouts in the main event of UFC Fight Night Azerbaijan on June 27th. Number 11 ranked lightweight Rafael Fiziev will take on Mexico's Manuel. Torres. Rafael is, of course, coming off that big knockout loss to Mauricio Hufi. On the other hand, Manuel Torres knocked out Grant Dawson in his last fight. He was scheduled to fight Benny Dariush, but he had to pull out of that fight. Of course, Manuel Torres has some big knockout wins over Drew Dober and Chris Duncan as well. His only loss in the UFC so far has been to Ignacio Bahamondes by knockout, who Rafael Fiziev incidentally has a win over. But I think Manuel Torres is going to knock Rafael Fiziev out cold in this fight. And what with this fight basically comes down to, in my opinion, is the size of Manuel Torres. He's a huge lightweight, huge length, big power, and Rafael Fiziev is, I think, very small for the division. Even if you look at those two Justin Gaethje fights, which Rafael lost, he took a bunch of damage in those fights. He was extremely undersized, in my opinion, compared to Justin Gaethje. He has a very small frame for the division. He looks like a featherweight. Actually, I think Rafael Fiziev would have a much higher ceiling at featherweight, where I think he could even be top 5 level, but I just don't see him beating these massive lightweights consistently. Therefore, I got Manuel Torres winning this fight. Rafael Fiziev could pull off a crafty veteran decision. This guy has been around for a long time. He's fought former champions, former title challengers, and he could get this win done. This is a big step up for Manuel Torres in competition. This is a step into that elite echelons of the lightweight division, and lightweight is a very tricky division. You oftentimes see contenders stepping up to the plate and then falling short. You see it time and time again. You've seen it with Chris Duncan lately, and you've seen it with a bunch of others. Mateusz Gamrot, he couldn't beat Charles Oliveira. Rafael Fiziev couldn't beat Justin Gaethje. Benoit Saint-Denis couldn't beat Dustin Poirier. So you've seen these young lightweights falter to older fighters, but I don't think Rafael Fiziev is that level to be able to pull off this win against Manuel Torres. He does make some questionable decisions in fights, which is, I think, ultimately going to be his downfall. I don't see him being able to craft a decision, but we'll see. In the co-main event of UFC Azerbaijan, we got Michel Pereira versus Shara Magomedov. I feel Shara Magomedov is going to beat Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira has looked dog shit in his last few fights. He got knocked out bad by Kyle Dawkins. I mean, that's pretty bad. And he got gassed out in one round against Fluffy Hernandez. Fights at medium pace and gassed out as in one round. Of course, he did knock out Michel Oleksiejczuk, but that was, I believe, it was a lucky knockout. Like, he just caught Michel Oleksiejczuk with the perfect shot and knocked him out. But I think Shara Magomedov is going to be very careful. He is a very crafty striker. He's going to maintain that distance and just get Michel Pereira tired. He might even get a knockout in this fight, and we'll see what happens. Shara Magomedov has no power though, and if Michel Pereira can work I don't know if he has extremely good wrestling chops, but I mean, we've seen Shara Magomedov get taken down by Bruno Silva. So if Michel Pereira can pull that out of his bag, he's a very experienced fighter. He has great experience fighting at 170 and 185. He could have that lighter man skill in there, but I doubt it. He's looked really bad in his last few fights, but we'll see. But I got Shara winning this fight. I just think he's in that phase of his career where he's taking this a lot more serious than Michel Pereira, but we'll see. Now, in the main event of UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi on July 25th, we got former title challenger Magomed Ankalaev returning against Khalil Rountree. Khalil is a former title challenger as well, and he's coming off a knockout loss to Yuri Prohaska. Magomed is coming off that knockout loss to Alex Pereira. And I got Magomed Ankalaev schooling Khalil Rountree in this fight. Actually, Khalil has pretty much no good wins in the UFC. If you really look at it objectively, who are his good wins? I would say Jamal Hill is his best win so far. Anthony Smith is a best win so far. On the other hand, Magomed Ankalaev has beaten Alex Pereira over 5 rounds fair and square. You've seen how hard it is to do. Alex Pereira is not just a powerful striker, he has really good stamina as well. He knows how to pace himself. He beat Israel Adesanya in the fifth round of their fight. He knows how to go the distance, and beating him over 5 rounds and actually outstriking him for large portions of that fight is really impressive by Ank. Yeah, I mean, we all do remember him mostly for getting smoked by Pereira in that second fight, but at the end of the day, he's a far superior fighter to Khalil Rountree, in my opinion. He has just two losses in the UFC. One of those losses was to Paul Craig in his debut via submission in the last minutes of the last round. It was a flukish win. On the other hand, Khalil Rountree has always faltered in front of good competition. Whether it's Yuri, who was winning that fight, Yuri was looking the worst he's ever looked, and he couldn't manage to pull that victory off. He's lost to, I think, Ivan Kutalaba. He's lost to Johnny Walker, and these are some terrible losses to have on your record. Magomed Ankalaev would never lose to that level of competition, and therefore I got Magomed Ankalaev winning this fight by a knockout. I think he's gonna knock Khalil Rountree out by TKO in the third round. Yeah, in the third round, he'll pick his shots over 2 rounds and go for the kill in the third and win that fight. Khalil Rountree has been looking very weird lately, and he's dejected over Khamzat's loss to Sean Strickland instead of probably focusing on his own fight, which is kind of weird. I'm not really a fan of Khalil Rountree. I think the dude's a total weirdo, but either way, I do respect him as a fighter, though, of course. A former title challenger, had that great fight against Alex, but Magomed beat Alex, there's a big difference there. So I got Magomed Ankalaev winning this fight. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. Now, this is a very interesting matchup. You got former title challenger Umar Nurmagomedov taking on David Martinez. Umar is coming off a win over Davison Figueiredo, and he beat Mario Batista in the fight before that. David Martinez is coming off a win over Chito Vera. He's beaten Rob Font and knocked out Simon Oliveira as well. And while on the surface it looks like, I'll say something very interesting here. While on the surface it looks like Umar Nurmagomedov should be winning this fight comfortably, David Martinez is a very tricky customer. He's very unorthodox. His movements are if you look at his movements, it's very Marab like. He's circling all the time. He's moving so much. He trains in Mexico at altitude. He took that fight against Rob Font on short notice, and you saw that even though he did get a little tired in the third round, he had great cardio in that fight. You saw in that fight against Mario Batista, by the third round, Umar was pretty tired. He was gasping while giving his post-fight interview, and David Martinez could be really, really difficult to take down. In the UFC, of course, we have seen David Martinez trying to be taken down only by Rob Font, and Rob Font isn't really a takedown artist. He's a boxer, but David Martinez is a high quality opponent and could give Umar Nurmagomedov some real issues on the feet and on the grappling. You saw Mario Batista fight tooth and nail against Umar Nurmagomedov in the grappling, scrambling really, really hard, getting away from takedowns at times. And I think David Martinez could replicate that. Of course, Mario Batista is very high level. We'll see what happens. I mean, on the surface, I think we can see Umar Nurmagomedov winning this fight, but David Martinez is no joke. Let me tell you all, David Martinez is no joke. And he could get this win. He has great cardio. And over 3 rounds, if he pushes the pace on Umar, slides in and out, uses his movement, gets away from those takedowns, as Umar Nurmagomedov is going for the takedown, he's sliding out of the way, pulling his leg out of those singles, not falling. Every time Umar Nurmagomedov tries to trip him, he gets up. He could be a handful for Umar Nurmagomedov, and with that body type, it's going to be really hard to take him down. Mario Batista still has the lanky kind of body type, but David Martinez is very short and stocky. I think he's a little undersized for the division. Umar Nurmagomedov is a huge bantamweight, and that could be an issue. We'll see what happens, but amazing fight. Hats off to Umar Nurmagomedov for taking this fight against such a dangerous up and coming prospect. It's going to be crazy. I'm really looking forward to this fight. This is a very weird matchup. This reminds me a lot of Allen and versus Shubazian type matchmaking. ZM versus Tom Nolan. Both these fights coming up this weekend. Steve Erceg just beat a ranked opponent in Tim Elliott. He had beaten unranked Ode Osborne prior to that. On the other hand, Ramzan Temirov last beat Charles Johnson that got suspended for a year over a doping violation. So I don't see how he gets Steve Erceg right in his comeback. I guess they just offered Steve Erceg this fight and he looked at this matchup and said, yeah, I'll win that. I'll make some money. And this is a dangerous matchup, though. I will say it's a dangerous matchup for Steve Erceg. Ramzan Temirov beat the shit out of CJ Vergara in his debut, and he beat Charles Johnson. After that, Charles Johnson, he got his takedowns in that fight, and he could work his takedowns against Steve Erceg as well. Steve Erceg has good scrambling ability, so we'll see what happens. I think I can pick Ramzan Temirov in this fight. He has looked. This is a matchup which, if Ode Osborne is knocking you down all over the place, I don't see how you're going to beat Ramzan Temirov, to be honest. Tim Elliott is not really a hard hitter, so, and he was catching Erceg, but it wasn't really affecting Erceg too much. Ramzan Temirov has good striking, good grappling. If he mixes it up, I think he's going to beat Steve Erceg, So, very strange that Steve Erceg took this matchup. I guess the money they were offering him is great, and he needs, these guys all have families. They need to feed their families, so they need to stay as active as possible. If they're not injured, the fight game is so unpredictable. One injury and you don't know how long you'll be out for. Steve Erceg was out for a considerable period of time after that knockout loss to Kai Kara France anyway. So I don't think he wants a huge layoff in his career. Your shelf life as a fighter is so short. You want to make the most of it. And that's why I think Steve Erceg took this matchup. But I think Ramzan Temirov is actually going to win this fight. I don't think Steve Erceg is that exceptional of a fighter, but we'll see what happens. He has big experience, of course. We'll see what happens. Moving on. In the main event of UFC Belgrade on August 1st, you got Uros Medic taking on Daniel Rodriguez. Of course, Uros Medic is coming off that big knockout win over Jeff Neal. Daniel Rodriguez beat Kevin Holland in his last fight. He's, of course, beaten Santiago Ponzinibbio and Alex Morono in his two fights before that. And I don't think this fight is as big of a landslide as people are making it out to be for Uros Medic. I know Daniel Rodriguez is old. He's been in a Mexican prison for 8 months. But I think Uros Medic is very open on the feet. And he's very inconsistent as well. You don't know when he's going to leave himself open for a counter. Gilbert Urbina, one of the worst fighters in the UFC, knocked him down pretty bad. He got knocked out by Puna Sariano. He got beaten by Maktakbek Oralbay. And while these are decent opponents, I think Daniel Rodriguez is good with the boxing. He nearly beat Kevin Gastelum. And if Kelvin Gastelum hadn't come into that fight overweight and gotten the weight class changed overnight, that's what I was saying. That's very unfair. Some of these fighters, they have to take this fight because you need the money. If you're fit and if you're on weight, you can't be like, no, I won't take this fight for blah blah whatever reason. You're 39 years old. If you're getting a part of Kelvin Gastelum's purse, which I think is a sizable purse, if you're getting 30% of that, you gotta take the fight. If D-Rod hadn't taken that fight, I think he would be on a 4 or 5 fight win streak. So I think I got Daniel Rodriguez winning this fight. Yeah, better level of comp than Uros Medic in my opinion. Better boxing fundamentals, good defense. He does gas out, but let's see what happens. Maybe he can pace himself more effectively for 5 rounds. It's hard to do when you're 40 years old, but I think I'm going to take D Rod in this fight. A crafty veteran performance by D Rod could get him this victory. So, yeah, D Rod. I got D Rod winning this fight actually. Marcin Tybura versus Aleksandar Rakic is also scheduled for this fight night. This is Rakic's debut in the heavyweight division. He's, of course, had a string of knockout losses too. He got injured against Jan Blachowicz. He got knocked out by Yuri Prohaska. He got knocked out by Azamat Murzakanov as well. And now he's moving up to the heavyweight division to give his career a new lease of life. And Marcin Tybura has, of course, been around forever. He's fought the best of the best competition in the heavyweight division. And you know what? I think I am going to give Marcin Tybura. I think Marcin Tybura can crafty his way to a win in this fight. Alexander Rakic's chin has looked sus as fuck. And I don't know how well he's going to take punches in this heavyweight division, to be honest. Marcin Tybura has a rock chin. Alexander Rakic wasn't some prolific knockout artist in the light heavyweight division. I don't see how he's going to be knocking out Marcin Tybura, who has fought massive heavyweights throughout his career, back to back. Derek Lewis, Ante Delija, Tom Aspinall, heavy hitters in the division, fought them back to back. I don't see Alexander Rakic knocking him out. To be honest, we'll see what happens. But I got Marcin Tybura winning this fight. He's old as fuck, but Alexander Rakic has looked like pure trash lately. I don't. He has a good leg kick game, but I don't think that leg kick game is gonna work on Marcin Tybura. To be honest, Marcin Tybura checks those leg kicks and gets out of the way pretty effectively, and he has decent punching power and grappling too. So I see Marcin Tybura actually winning this fight. He hasn't actually looked that bad. Even in the fights he's lost lately, he hasn't looked that bad. He beat Sergey Spivak lately, who's a decent heavyweight. So I got Marcin winning this fight. You also got Johnny Walker making his heavyweight debut against Ante Delija. I got Ante actually beating Johnny Walker in this fight. Johnny Walker has, of course, looked like shit in a lot of his fights. He had that really weird decision against Dominic Reyes. In his last fight, he's got knocked out a bunch against Magomed Ankalaev, Jamal Hill, Volkan Oezdemir, you name it. They knocked Johnny Walker out. And I think Ante Delija will too knock Johnny Walker out in the first round. And the issue is Johnny Walker, while he is a physical freak, his technique isn't great. He leaves his chin out there while throwing kicks, while throwing punches. His chin is always there to be hit. And I think Ante Delija is going to touch that chin and knock Johnny Walker out in the first round. Yeah, that's my honest take. You also got Ludovit Klein coming back against Tofiq Musayev. Ludovit Klein beat Mateusz Rombatsky in his last fight. He also has good wins over Ignacio Bahamondes and Thiago Moises. Tofiq Musayev is coming off that win over Ignacio Bahamondes. He lost in his debut to Mike Tekbek Oralbai. And I got Ludovit Klein winning this fight actually. Ludovit Klein is a hell. I love Ludovit Klein, man. He's so good. His striking is so amazing. And I think he's going to just piece up Tofiq Musayev for a crafty 30-27 decision. Ludovit did get injured in his last fight against Mateusz Rombatsky, which has kept him out this whole time. But I think he's going to beat Tofiq Musayev, who is he cheated in his last fight to beat Ignacio Bahamondes. He got knocked down bad, but he held the cage to not get taken down, and which led to him winning that fight. I think Ignacio would have gone on to TKO Tofiq if not for that cage grab, but it is what it is. But I got Ludovit Klein pulling off this win, 30-27 decision. And this is a bonus, yeah, because the main event for this fight night hasn't been announced yet, even though it's 5 or 6 weeks away. There are rumors that it's going to be Duplessis versus Kumar Usman, but it's not been announced officially. So I don't think there's any point speculating. You know how Kamaru Usman is. I'm pretty sure Duplessis wants to get back in there. It's been ages since he fought. It's been ages since Usman fought as well, but you know how he is. He honestly, it should have Usman versus Mohammed should have happened by now, yeah, but I digress. Anyway, Jared Cannonier versus Christian Leroy Duncan is set for UFC Oklahoma City. Jared Cannonier is coming off that loss to Michael Venom Page. Christian Leroy Duncan beat Roman Dolidze in his last fight. And, you know, Jared Cannonier has been fighting some unranked guys over his last few fights. Gregory Rodriguez wasn't ranked when Jared fought him. He beat Gregory Rodriguez. MVP wasn't ranked, but he's old. But I think Christian Leroy Duncan is terrible. You know, if you've seen his last fight, he looked so bad against Roman Dolidze. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, anyone who's decent should be dominating Roman at this point, in my view. Roman is so old, he's so slow. And if Jared Cannonier fought Roman Dolidze at any point in his career, he would get a dominant decision victory over him for sure. And Christian Leroy Duncan looked so unsure of himself in that fight against who I believe is probably one of the worst ranked fighters in the UFC. And I got Jared Cannonier beating Christian Leroy Duncan in this fight. I know he's old, but I just think he's way, way better than Christian Leroy Duncan. And even in that fight against MVP, if MVP wasn't such an unorthodox fighter to fight, I think Jared Cannonier would have beaten him, you know. MVP is just too weird to fight. It's unlike anything you will ever have fought before. And Jared Cannonier isn't really a takedown artist. You know, if you're a takedown guy, you can get that win over Michael Venom Page, but Jared Cannonier was striking with him, and that led to his loss. But I don't think he's gonna lose to Christian Leroy Duncan. I think he's just way better. And that's it. These are some massive fights which will be taking place over the next 2 months. I can't wait. Which matchup are you the most excited for? Let me know what you think. I'm out. Peace.